All right, so this is ordinarily the part where I welcome the folks watching at home on Facebook, but we're having some technical difficulties, so it'll just be us in the room tonight, which is lovely and intimate, and I am so appreciative of everyone who came tonight for our event. I want to start off just by thanking Spark House for hosting us. This is a lovely facility. If you haven't been in here before, really lucky to have this right here in Covington in Kenton County for co-working space and events and smoothies during the day, which are delicious, and we probably spend too much money on them at our office. I'm Lacey Starling. I'm the president and CEO of LINKnky. We are the newspaper here in Northern Kentucky. This is our 5th community conversation this year. We are so excited to end the year with such a really interesting topic. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our sponsors. So Fisher Homes is the sponsor that helps us have venues for this space and have Norse Media here working on the AV. GBS is our audience sponsor. So those of you who have seen the program, there's a QR code for where you submit questions. Please use that. It goes to an app called Pigeonhole. It's really great because then we don't have to pass a microphone around the room. And when we have folks on Facebook, they can participate too. So that's why we do that. So you can ask Christopher questions. Megan will be asking your questions of him. You can also upvote questions. So if someone else has asked something that you love, you don't need to ask it again. You can just give it a thumbs up. And then those upvoted questions become the most likely to be asked. We partnered with Northern Kentucky Forum on these events, Norse Media, which is the students at NKU who are doing the video and the audio work here, who are fantastic. Executive Transportation, Gateway Community and Technical College, Republic Bank, all sponsor these events to help bring them to you. These events are wonderful and they're free to the public, but they're definitely not free for us. So we really, really appreciate our sponsors. So let's give them a round of applause. The only other thing I'll say is that if you enjoy these events, if you enjoy this event tonight, if you enjoy LINKnky in the community, and you want to support our work, there's another QR code on the program where you can donate. We are in our year-end campaign. We're working to raise $10,000 from the community this month, and it helps support our public interest reporting. So everything that goes into the super issues, everything that goes onto the website, these community conversations, it's supported by readers. And we're able to provide it free of charge. There's no paywall on our site. We mail the super issues to every single household in Northern Kentucky free of charge to the folks who are receiving it. And again, that is free to y'all and definitely not free for us to produce. So if you feel it in your heart and you want to support us, we would very much appreciate that. You're not here to hear me talk though. You're here to hear Christopher Rice talk. And Christopher Rice is a consulting futurist and technologist exploring the intersections of technology, education, climate, community, and economic development and politics. Christopher is a Kentuckian, born and raised. He now lives in Louisville, and he has spent the last 30 years working with businesses, colleges, universities, organizations to reimagine possible futures. And so that's what he's going to talk about tonight. So I'll turn it over to you, Christopher. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really great to be here tonight. We were just able to move back to Kentucky last year after a lengthy exile in Austin, Texas. And I'm glad to be home. As some of you will know, I was able to speak to the LINKnky summit a while back, and we were actually looking to move up here, but my grandkids won the fight. So please don't take that personally that we didn't come up here, but Louisville is where my heart is. So grandkids win every time. But I'm really glad to be here at Spark House. You know, technical difficulties come with it, but how wonderful it is that the area has a facility like this to do it. It's amazing. You know, people from the outside look, they see a fancy building, they see a cool name, but really so many great connections happen here. And when you look at communities that have a lot of innovation, a lot of great stuff going on, it's places exactly like this, organizations like Link, organizations like LINKnky and others that spark those connections and make that innovation happen. So I'm really excited to see this here, and I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. I am a consulting futurist, right, which means that it's my job on a daily basis to think about possible futures. That sounds a lot more glamorous than it is. Really, it involves a lot of research, a lot of phone calls with people across different industries to find out sort of what's going on, where we think things might be heading, a lot of analysis. And one of those areas that seems to be of real interest to folks lately is the future of work, right? How are we going to be working in the future? Who will we be working with? How will we be working? Will I have a job because of AI, right? I get that question 15 times a day. Yes, you will have a job. AI is not going to take your job unless, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But it's fun to do, but I will say, anybody who comes and tells you this will be the future, right? In the future, you will have a flying jetpack or something like that. Flying cars, right? First thing I want you to do is check for your wallet, make sure it's still there, right? A good professional futurist will not predict the future for you. A good futurist will tell you what the trends are, right? There are some trends that are more baked in than others, like population, right? Climate, these are some things that are largely baked in, right? And then there are other things that are a little more uncertain. So one of the things I hope we can do together tonight is kind of imagine what some possible futures might be as we think about futures of work. Right? One of those things that's on everybody's mind right now is AI, right? I do a lot of work with AI right now. I'm here to tell you that artificial general intelligence is not coming anytime soon. Most likely not in the, maybe when you guys are like my age, maybe we get close to it, right? So you don't have to worry about HAL refusing to open the pod bay doors or legions of Terminators like coming down the street to get you. What you might have to worry about is some tech entrepreneur who gets the idea to stick ChatGPT in a Chinese robot, and then maybe they break your arm in the lab or run over you at the track, or probably some of you have probably seen some of these videos on TikTok and Facebook where you've seen some of these robots gone wrong kind of things, right? So we don't have to worry about AGI, right? And in many ways, I'm going to say something that probably surprises you. You really don't have to worry that much about like the big AI names that you might hear today, right? Like OpenAI, right? Anthropic, Google Gemini, which may do a little bit better than the others. Those are like what we call big frontier models, right? And the idea is that they're a general purpose technology. They can do anything. They can do your homework. Right? They can fill out your expense report. They're also very, very expensive to put together. They take a lot of computational power. They take a lot of expensive chips. They take a lot of energy, right? As any of you have had to deal with, like, surprise, we're going to put a data center in your backyard and your electricity rates are going to go, woo, all kind of crazy, right? Some of my friends in Virginia and the DC area are dealing with electricity rates that are just going crazy because of all the data centers in the DC area right now. What we are likely to see are what we call small model AI. And if you go to a website called Hugging Face, I know, tech bros, right? Huggingface, right, .com, you will see this whole catalog, right, of lots of little models that do very specific things, right? They do specific things to photos or to music, right? If you use if you use a video conferencing app and it takes some notes for you, that's usually using like a small AI model, right? So little small models, things on your phone, like all the stuff that everybody says Apple is like way behind in AI, right? Apple is like actually ahead of the pack for most of them because they figured out that little small AI models that do specific things and you never know you're using AI that live on your device and they're really cheap to do. That's kind of the future of AI, right? But there are some industrial uses of it. And I hope nobody here, if you're from Amazon, you won't hate me from this. Amazon is sort of like one of the big players in AI and the future of work. Now, you will hear a lot of talk about how the future of work in AI is all about centaurs, right? Like AI, it's AI human put together, and the human is up on top, and the human is in charge. And that is like not how places like Amazon or Microsoft really see the future. They see it the other way around. It's like a horse's head on a human body, right? Reverse centaur, where the AI is kind of telling people where to go and what to do and how to be super efficient at it. So like, heart out to my Amazon drivers, right? And I order a lot from Amazon, so I'm part of the problem, right? But these Amazon drivers, they're going to equip them with these little augmented reality glasses, starting in some trials next year. And the little glasses will put up messages and map directions, telling the driver, like, turn left here, go in that door, go these stairs, like timing them down to the second, right? To try to make a human driver a lot more like a robot. And a robot driver is very expensive, right? So AI telling people what to do is more like the future of AI in the workplace in many cases than people using AI to do something more efficiently, which is pretty scary. So what's AI good at, right? AI is actually like really good at coding. So some of you have probably seen like the computer science graduate apocalypse. Turns out if you graduated in 2025 with an English degree, you have a lower rate of unemployment than if you graduated with a computer science degree. Yay, English majors, right? So English majors are having their moment in the sun, right? They are doing better than the computer science graduates. Because it turns out that AI, generative AI, is really good at coding. Right? There are these little apps called Cursor. I was playing around in a Cursor environment today. Cursor will do some coding, and it's not just all like vibe coding. Like, hey, make me a pizza website, right? Like it's not sudo apt-get, make me a sandwich kind of thing. But it will create like some really good code in the most part. Now, it also tends to create like less efficient code, so it uses more energy and more computing resources, so a human has to go in and clean it up, right? It also tends to create code that is not always the most secure code, because it looks pretty reasonable, right? But some human has to be paid to go and clean that up. And the product of a lot of this AI is what, I love this term that a person I know coined recently, it's called work slop. Right, like AI generated work. Somebody goes, ooh, look, I used AI to make this. Now let me hand it on to you to do something with. It comes across your desk, and now all of a sudden it's like, what is this crap, right? Like this is bad, so now I have to spend time to fix it. So there's likely a pretty good set of jobs ahead in the near future for people cleaning up work slop, right? Like badly written code, badly written documentation, etc., right? Another thing that we tend to see is like AI, the future of AI is in like what we call, this is a nerdy tech term, but like robotic process automation. If you were in sort of business and technology about 15 years ago, like RPA was all the hotness, right? We're gonna figure out a way to automate how to get the right documents to you at the right time. We're gonna automate all these processes, and it didn't work so well. Because everybody's data, like the dirty secret of almost every company is that your data is really bad. It's not organized well, right? So it's robotic process automation all over again. So there will be a lot of jobs for people who are good at data, cleaning up data, right? Because it turns out AI is only as good as the data that goes into it. AI can do some interesting tagging and things with data right now. But a good human data scientist, somebody that really understands the shape, the clarity of data, that can get in and understand business processes, workflows within an organization, and understand how data supports that, right? Those folks will be in pretty good shape. Now, the bad news is that if you're in any sort of creative industry, you're in trouble, right? You're in trouble. Musicians, as the futurist Bruce Sterling likes to say, what happens to musicians eventually happens to the rest of us, right? And if you've been paying attention, Did anybody see where there was the country music artist that doesn't really exist, that was like blowing up the Spotify charts this past week, right? Like the image and video of this person, all AI generated, the lyrics are AI generated, the voice is AI generated, the music is AI generated, like some human kind of tweaked it and curated it and uploaded it to Spotify, right? But, and it's not very good, right? It's not very good, and that's because like, most music isn't very good there. Like an old man shaking his fist. Most music isn't very good. And what AI is really good is at taking averages of lots of things together and giving you kind of fitting the curve of that from a statistical standpoint. But it's good enough that it's been listened to tons and tons and tons of time, right? Like the internet, like so much of the content now is like cranked out and produced by LLMs, by generative AI. If you work in marketing copy, right? If you work in all sorts of things, if you generate text or images or even like short little bits of video. Coca-Cola has like an all AI generated video for Christmas out right now. So there's like this Christmas ad, and the way that you tell is because AI can't make film clips that last very long. So like if you loved MTV back in the 90s and it was like all quick cuts to smash cuts to everything, AI videos are a lot like that. So that's one way to kind of easily detect these things. Nobody is making a whole movie untouched by human hands out of AI anytime soon. But if you make video for commercials, if you shoot product photos, right? Like, holy cow, you can just scan, here's my bottle of water, you can just scan this and upload it to a really good model in Google right now and tell it, make me a thing where it's in front of a fireplace, there's some soft bokeh focus in the back, blah, blah, and it will produce fantastic commercial photos for you to use in advertisements. So if you're in a creative industry right now, it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard. That's been the thing that that most people latch onto. But again, it won't be great. Like, has anybody sort of watched like Stranger Things 5? Anybody big Stranger Things? But have you noticed that this season it feels like the look of it feels a little gross? They're like, they say they're not, but they're using a bunch of AI to do like little bits of the special effects, and it feels gross. That's why it doesn't feel as good, right? It doesn't feel as good. I like to think of it as like a Bach faucet for Muzak. Now, if anybody knows what the concept of a Bach faucet is, it's like, hey, let me just turn on this faucet and like Bach, right? I'll get endless like bits of Bach coming out and it'll all be great. Unfortunately, we have like a Muzak faucet, right? It's endless supplies of stuff, but it's so cheap, right? It's so cheap. So for right now, creative industries, you're in for a bit of a problem. So that's some thoughts about AI, and I'd love to talk with you and answer some of your questions about that. Another thing that impacts the future of work is skills-based hiring and micro-credentials, right? These are some terms, if you haven't heard them, you're going to hear them a lot more. American confidence in higher education has dropped like a stone. If some of you probably saw the Gallup poll from last week, where roughly 2/3 of Americans said that college is not worth the cost, right? College is not worth the cost. Now, people still send their kids to school, right? So like you have to take statements like that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But at the same time, we're kind of busy, like in the United States, dismantling our system of higher education just as fast as we can, right? We cut like all this NIH funding, National Institute for Health, the NSF funding. We've cut a lot of funding that supports basic research, and a lot of the tech innovation that we produce is based on what we call basic research or bench research that's done with a lot of this funding, right? So we're just kind of busy dismantling that. There are a lot of other countries out there who are gladly taking advantage and hiring away a lot of our best researchers and spending a lot of money building labs, just like we did, incidentally, like after World War II, and we like took all the best Germans and like put them into universities, right? A lot of people are busy taking the best Americans that they can buy and building out research capacity of that.
We don't have to deal with that in the near future, but it'll be an issue eventually, right? So college degrees will become sort of, for a lot of reasons, not perceived as valuable, except for if you go to certain universities, right? But what will get more valuable are what we call micro-credentials, where you get like little certificates or little skills-based training in a certain specific area, right? You might go like 12 weeks and get a micro-credential in basic data analysis with Excel or whatever. You'll hear about stackable credentials where you can kind of stack them and go. You've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, you've got the Koch Foundation, you've got the Walton Family Foundation. A lot of these big foundations are really funding how to promote this kind of education and how to build like credential wallets, a lot of times on blockchain, for people how to show companies that they actually have a set of skills, right? Like Walmart is really big into this right now as an employer, and I expect other companies to follow suit. So the lines between what we think of as like traditional university learning and workforce development, those are going to start to blur and mash up a little bit. So you won't just go to college to get a job-ready degree. You might go and get a degree, or you might work for this employer, get a set of credentials, work for another employer, get a set of credentials that stack on that. And learning will happen more often across your lifetime rather than a really concentrated period in your early 20s. Okay, the next big area, the next big trend in the future of work are blue-collar jobs. Blue-collar jobs, I'm here to tell you. Now, be very careful when somebody tells you like that this particular industry, right? Like we all know, well, if you're of a certain age, you know The Graduate, where Dustin Hoffman gets pulled aside, and I got one word for you. Plastics, right? So always take that with a bit of a grain of salt. But the truth is that we have a massive, massive shortage in the United States right now of plumbers, of electricians, of carpenters, of all skilled trades. Massive, massive shortage. Your quickest path now to a six-figure income as a young person is to skip college and go to trade school. That's not sexy to hear. We're so used to, in the United States, I used to be a college professor, right? It's hard to say, like college is maybe not but if you're in it for the income and not necessarily for the learning, skilled trades are a fast path to that. One thing that's really driving that is you see in the news all these contracts for data centers. Data centers take a lot of power, and we don't have enough electricians to wire everything up fast enough. That's a huge, huge roadblock in the growth of AI. We don't have enough electricians. We don't have enough local manufacturing capability to manufacture enough transformers, enough big chunks of our electrical infrastructure to move fast enough to power these things, right? So shortage in manufacturing, shortage in skilled trades is a big hole. So I would expect that to be a major growth area, because the little secret, regardless of your area of political persuasion, one of the big secrets is that globalization, which those of us who came of age in the 80s and 90s know a world of nothing but globalization, right? We cut trees in eastern Kentucky, we send them out to the West Coast, they go on a ship to China, China turns them into furniture, the furniture comes back across the ocean and then comes to a showroom in Covington, right? That's globalization. And that's coming to an end. Right, we kind of got a hard lesson on that at the beginning of COVID, right? And remember when that the ship, the Everlast, was like kind of jammed up sideways in the Suez, and all of a sudden everything got hard to get for a bit? Yeah. And what that means is that manufacturing is coming back. Tariffs or no, whatever, there are larger macro political and economic trends that mean that manufacturing is going to have to come back to the United States over the next couple of decades. So good, high-skilled, high-paying factory work is going to be a real part of daily work life for Americans in a way we haven't seen in like 50 years, right? And skilled trades, if you're building factories, if you're retooling factories, if you're re-equipping all this, skilled trades are needed to build out all of that infrastructure. And if I wouldn't say like the watchword of the word is plastics, but one of the watchwords of the future is infrastructure. So the future of work, a lot of great job opportunities around the build out or refinement, refurbishment of American infrastructure, right? I know we have a lot about like oil and gas right now. You know, there's no real near-term future without continued investment and use of natural gas. You know, as somebody who considers themselves, you know, pretty like pro-climate, pro-environmentalism, that can be hard to say, but it is the truth, right? We can't just like turn off natural gas tomorrow and have enough energy to do everything that we need to do. We are falling dramatically behind the rest of the world in build out of solar and wind. You know, it's kind of interesting to come back to Kentucky and hear people talk about like wind power here. I'm used to like my son went to school in Lubbock at Texas Tech. They have like a wind energy program. You drive from Austin to Lubbock. It's about a 6-hour drive. And it's like miles and miles and oceans of wind turbines. And a lot of them are stopped, right? And you like, why are those wind turbines stopped? What's the problem? Texas runs out of energy on the regular. Ask me about surviving the winter of 2021 in Austin, right? Like we run out of energy. And why do the wind turbines get stopped? Because there's not enough cabling and connection to get all that electricity out of West Texas to where it needs to go, right? So infrastructure is going to be a huge thing. Energy, energy, energy. So one good blue-collar job of the future is going to be installing solar, right? Whether it's big farms. I'll let you in on like one of my little favorite tips about work in the future because I come from a family of farmers and I also nerd out about solar power. There's a great term you'll learn about called agrovoltaics. Turns out that if you plant crops and put solar panels on with the crops, it shades the crops and it prevents water loss, and it also generates power and gives like butterflies and bugs and birds a place to live, so it's better for your ecosystem, keeps the bees around. You know, solar and agriculture, two great tastes that go great together, right? So there you go. Another thing that I would say in the future work, if I had to point to one word to our Dustin Hoffman of the present, young people, I'd say if I had to say one word, it's not plastic, it's batteries, right? Like battery tech is going to be like the growth innovation industry when we talk about future work. So people designing batteries, people manufacturing batteries, right? Like one of the things I was really excited to see in Kentucky is we had like some battery factories get started here. Now it's kind of backing off a little bit because of some policy changes. But the overall trend, right, is that batteries are going to become more important, right? Like in Texas, in Austin, we had one of those big Elon Musk, like mega pack, like battery facilities. It charges up when the energy is cheap. And then when the power grid, you know, starts to have some demand on it, the power comes out when it's a little more expensive and helps us even out the power, right? So batteries, whether it's planes using batteries, right? It's entirely possible that you will fly little short regional flights from Cincinnati to Detroit or to Louisville or to Atlanta on a battery-powered plane in your lifetime, even if you're my age. And battery tech, getting more and more efficient batteries invented will be part of that, all right? Another thing I would talk about is like, where are we going to work? And it brings us back, and then I'd love to get into more of a discussion. But do you remember and this is why I always say, like, be careful of any futurist who tells you this is the way it's going to be. Check your wallet. Because everybody remember in 2020 when it was like, we're all going to work at home and we're never going to go into the office again, ever. We're going to have to turn all this empty office space into apartments because nobody's going to go in and work. And of course, now we know that ain't so, right? And that's where, when you think about the future, you have to be careful for like these little like black swan events that are a little bit, you know, does the black swan change something fundamental about our culture, or like we don't still do, like, some of you remember like elbow bumps, or like, the little shuffle thing where you do your feet and stuff. And we thought, we're never going to shake hands again. That's going to be all gone. And of course we shake hands, right? We hug it up. If you're like, hey, you hug it up, right? So we are going back into the office. It turns out work is a fundamentally kind of social activity. There's a lot of benefit from being around other people. Now, this doesn't mean we're back in the office 40 hours a week. Doesn't mean we're in the office even 5 days a week. But, more hybrid work schedules for knowledge workers are becoming the norm. In fact, I just saw in London, in the UK, that they have people fighting over office space leases now, and people are having to sign leases that extend decades out because the supply of office space is so small. So where will we be working? Probably in an office or a space like this of some kind, right? Like, what we think of as the office may be different, but when we think about the world of work in the future, it's going to happen in some place that helps spark our connection and our productivity. And so with that, I would say, when you think about the future of work, right, don't look at like little small things that you see, like, that pop up in the paper, right? Because a lot of times, like, you get like something sensationalist that pops out, or like somebody sent a press release to somebody, or somebody went to coffee with somebody and got something. What you really want to do is ask yourself is, okay, what are the major trends for this? What do we see that's happening, that's been happening for a while, and it doesn't look like there's anything necessarily economically or environmentally or demographically that's going to change that, right? Like, if that's not there, then take what you're being told with a grain of salt. If you're told that AI is going to take like half of everybody's jobs and we're all going to be out on the street, out of work, let me tell you the best way that you can like prove to yourself that that's not the case is go back and look at what was the actual economic productivity increase of the invention of the greatest invention of the second half of the 20th century, the internet, right? Did the internet like put everybody out at work? No. Did the internet actually increase productivity that much? It really didn't. It was like marginal productivity, what you would have expected to see otherwise with CapEx investments and infrastructure investments, right? So AI, right, even if it figures out a way to automate some things, the idea that it's going to like increase productivity that much, and here's the other little secret, there is no data that AI, as it's implemented today, actually increases productivity. There's no right? And I like data. There's no data that suggests that. There's a study that's sponsored by, who? Anthropic. Who? OpenAI. Let me ask the turnip company what the demand for turnips will be over the next 10 years. And I'm sure we are going to hear about lots of great recipes for turnips and how turnips are going to be the real hotness. Right? Forget potatoes, we got turnips, right? So think about that. But I will leave you, because I always like to leave you with a couple of like scary things. Because that tends to provoke people, right? Not terribly scary, but we'll sleep tonight, right? But a couple of things. So one, demographics. By the end of the 20th century, there will be half as many Chinese in the world as there are today. The country of South Korea will be almost empty, like Leslie County, Kentucky. Last one out, turn off the lights, right? And these are solid facts of demographics. Right? Like demographics in many ways are destiny, and barring an act of God, right? Like children don't suddenly appear, right? So the best thing you can do is like look at fertility rates, right? Because once like your fertility rate drops below a certain amount and you go too long with that fertility rate drop, it's really hard to get that fertility rate like back up again. Not that it's impossible, but it's super difficult. Let me give you.
Is the China staff based on the one-child policy? I mean,
so yes, so that's part of it, right? So a couple things we know. So one China policy was a huge mistake for them, right? Like just like, and they know it. And it was like, oh, we're going to up that to 2-child policy. There weren't many takers of that, right? Oh, you don't like 2-child? 3-child policy, right? And that even hasn't, right, taken
Probably
on.
the cost of living.
Cost of living, social support, women entering into the workforce, all the things that modernization would sort of expect. We also know that they've been sort of fudging their demographic numbers for a while. They really fudged hard their COVID losses. So there are a lot fewer Chinese this side of COVID than there were going in. And that number, that accurate loss there is beginning to show up in the demographic numbers now.
More people now?
Not more people are, but more people than we were told at the time, right? Some countries are honest about demographics. Some are better at others than keeping track of it. But that's an issue. In South Korea, South Korean women have just decided no thank you to children, right? Like, no thank you. Just as a society, they have said no. We're not going to do it, right? And so South Korean fertility rate is somewhere like 0.7 live births per woman now. Replacement is at 2.1, right? So they're in trouble. Right, so enjoy your Samsung and stuff now, because if you're young enough, Samsung may just kind of vanish or look very different. In the US, we also have a bit of a demographic problem. And I know this is going to like shock some people, so this is why I like to say it. Reducing immigration is like a huge economic mistake, right? Like our fertility rate in the US is somewhere around like 1.6, 1.7 live births. And so without like immigration and children of immigrants to go back into the labor pool to fund like Xers like me or like elder millennials who are like creeping up on retirement, right? Like economies, like weird things happen with economies when like population lowers. Most of us have never lived in a world in which population secularly declines. But for most of the world outside of Africa, the rest of the 21st century is a story of population decline almost everywhere. Like Africa, yes. Almost everywhere else, no, right? There are a few countries that are doing better. Mexico is actually like doing really better than the US demographically. But if you want to know what happens if we don't figure this out relatively soon in the US, if you've been to Italy, if you've been to Japan, you know what a society where the average age between 55 and 65 looks like. And that's in 20 years where we start to look if we don't figure out a way to get our numbers right. So demographics and work matter, right? We're in a world in which case, like peak humanity, by which we mean like we hit the max population and then the population starts to decline, that's probably about 40 years out globally, right? Yeah. Now, at the same time, the other thing that I would love to, this is another like shocker kind of thing, is that climate change, right, is like a huge impactor on work and economy, right? Like without doing anything, whether you believe it's like man-made or not, whatever, the impact is real economically, and we know that like global GDP is set to have like over between now and 2050 to like reduce by a huge chunk, right? It just gets more expensive to do everything. If you don't believe it, like I'll tell you who does believe it. Insurance companies. Try to buy home insurance in Florida. Try to buy home insurance in Louisiana. Try to buy home insurance in parts of Kentucky. Try to buy home insurance in California, North Carolina, South Carolina, like places where like big environmental issues have hit and weather-related climate impacts have been felt. Home insurance is going to be really hard to get. And what happens when you can't get mortgage insurance? You can't get a mortgage, right? And if you can't get a mortgage, then labor cannot move very easily to get to where it wants to go. I moved from Austin back to Kentucky, not only because of family, but because Texas is running out of water. When I heard like one of the big, most conservative Republican Texans you will ever meet, which is the Texan Commissioner of Agriculture. When the Texan Commissioner of Agriculture gets on the news and says, we are going to run out of water in 7 years. We will not be able to grow enough food to feed ourselves, right? In 7 years, right? And then they say, no, wait, we've got a plan. We're going to take, this is true, we're going to like inject stuff into the oil wells and get all that water that we shoot into the oil wells to get the oil out. We're going to take it out and clean it up. And you guys can like, yeah, you guys can drink that. I was like, you know what has lots of water? Kentucky, right? Let's go home. And so that has to do with demographics, because places that aren't environmentally viable are not economically viable. So I have said for years, and I still fearlessly, I won't say predict, but like it's like I don't know how it doesn't happen this way, is that over time, more and more people are going to move here or Louisville or other places where there is more water in the Rust Belt that got emptied out when people moved southwest. And so the question is if we want to have a thriving economy here, how do we house those folks? How do we train them, right? How do we help them to start businesses? That's going to have a lot to do with the future of work, right? And that's how climate can impact it. All of a sudden, areas that have struggled to attract folks look really, really good. And so with that, we can open it up to questions. Thank you. Hopefully I didn't bore you all to sleep.
We're going to go off script here. Usually we do not do this, but if anyone would like to ask a question out loud, you may. Otherwise, I can speak up. But we've got a nice, small, intimate group here, so I think we figured we might as well try to have a conversation.
Yeah.
You talked about the manufacturing jobs and like with the battery plants and things like that, which was fascinating. And touching back on the AI topic though, and more robotics, and I think that will bring a lot of jobs, but do you think that robotics and AI though will have an impact on those entry-level positions still in those manufacturing companies?
There's no manufacturing future in the U.S. that doesn't involve robotics on the factory line, right? Like full stop. There's never going to be like, my job is just like to turn it over to George Jetson and just push the button at the end of the line every day. Like that's never coming back. The things that are skilled trades, right? Those things are it turns out really hard to get a robot to do. Right, like picking a piece of fruit. You will occasionally see a fancy demo where a robot hand can very like gently, but like replicability at scale, no. So like fine-tuned stuff, right? And we're talking robots like you might see at Toyota or something, like big arms, processes like that. Not like what Elon Musk shows you with this little robot that like comes around, like not human-shaped robots. Right. But for the skilled trades, those are immune. Right, those are immune to robotics. And so when we talk about manufacturing, it's going to be like maintenance of those systems, designs of those systems, managing the data, managing the logistics, right? All continue to be really important.
Thank you.
So going back to the data centers, I just heard a really great story on NPR the other day about a small community, and I cannot remember where they're located, but they're fighting a data center, wanting to go in. First of all, for their bills, right? They know that that's happened elsewhere. But when you mentioned, putting more electricians to work, and like the thing about that is once it's built, it's very low maintenance, right? So then I wonder if you're just aware of any conversation around, yes, it's great to build up that workforce, but what happens after?
Okay, so I will say, do not let anyone tell you that data centers are a form of economic development. They are not, right? Data centers are largely a form of like negative tax growth, which means you're giving them so many tax breaks to come and locate in your community that you're not going to recoup your investment to use for workforce training. Once they're built, they're done. Once all the chips, the graphics cards go into the server center, you need like a skeleton crew of people who maintain climate and switch out an H100 when it goes and fries, which they do with alarming regularity. But there's no like whole bunch of jobs at a data center. So you're losing tax revenue at the same time your utility bills for both water and especially electricity go way up. So it's actually like a net negative. Like anybody who went through the crisis in small town Kentucky when a Walmart would locate in your town knows that like Walmarts have like a net negative like economic effect on your town. Same thing with data centers. Right, same thing with data centers. In your town, like now we can talk about overall economic growth and the aggregate economic impact, but in your town, a data center itself is not an economic multiplier.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to address this now or later, but I mean, I just don't see how we get through this without government subsidies of some form, whether it's to the communities that are affected by the cost of energy, or, you know, take the concept of minimum basic income, which I used to think was kind of a harebrained idea 10 years ago, but I think it's actually where we're going to have to go, because if you change the means of production, maybe we need to rethink money. You know, I mean, it's like we're here, we're the people. So I'm just kind of curious if you've got any perspective on that from an AI impact.
Yeah, I mean, there are, so one thing you will hear, and the folks who say like universal basic income, like UBI, the folks who say that the most now are the folks from Silicon Valley that are most involved in selling you an AI system, right?
So they see the negatives that could potentially happen.
They see a way to salve people. If you ask me if like some of the big Silicon Valley venture capitalists and CEOs like actually care if like, you know, Joe and Mary in Covington have like a basic income because they destroyed everything with AI, that might be the first time in the history of capitalism, other than Henry Ford, right, where that kind of thing happens. So I don't know that I'd stake my money on it. I also don't think, again, that like artificial intelligence is going to have that level of economic impact. There's no good data. And if you read, like I read a lot of research reports, and part of that research report is the first thing I flip to after I read the big statement in the abstract, I flip to the back and I look at the methodology section. How did you come up with this information? And most of it is really bad. Most of it is really bad. Like, oh, we had this skills ledger and we decided like to do some experiments to see if like the AI could actually do this skill. And if it could do this skill, then it meant it was going to replace the job. That almost never works, right? It's like jobs and laborers are more than just particular sets of skills. Like I've worked with like large universities and things and doing what's called like an ERP system, like how you keep track of people in it. And those are called the graveyard of CIOs for a reason, because everybody thinks that this shiny new system is going to replace so much of the sneaker net and the me asking Susie, how do we do this in the ledger and how do we do that? And like they go and they do it and they never spend the money cleaning up the data or doing the data process, and it just kind of doesn't work out like the way that we think. So none of the data suggests to me that it's going to have the impact. In fact, like if I had to like gamble, and I'm not a professional venture capitalist, or I do not manage like wealth growth funds. Please do not accept this as legal financial advice. But let's just say that I have some friends who are also in this area, and they are like very kind of quietly moving a lot of their retirement investment portfolio out of these tech stocks into like cash, money market funds, bonds, municipal bonds, things like that, because there's a whole lot of Enron going on. Like as a kid, one of my favorite skits was, I love the Three Stooges as a kid because I'm a moron, ask my wife, but like I love the Three Stooges. And there's one where like Larry like has a $10 bill and Mo goes, wait a minute, you owe me $10 for like me buying your lunch the other day. He goes, oh, well, here you go. And Mo gets it and he's like, I got $10. And then Shemp is like, wait a second, you owe me $10 because I paid your rent last week. Oh, well, here you go. Here's $10. And Larry goes, oh, well, you owe me because like I paid to clean our clothes and do this. Here you go. And everybody goes, all right, the debts are all settled. And it was like one $10 bill being passed around. That is what like AI investment is right now, right? Like NVIDIA says, we're going to put 20 billion or whatever it is into OpenAI. And OpenAI takes that money and says, oh, we're going to buy data center capability from Oracle at one of these like big data centers. And then Oracle says, we're going to take that money and buy the chips from NVIDIA to put in our data center. And it's a $10 bill that's being like thrown around in circles. So anybody who survived like the .com bust, Enron, a lot of that stuff, like it looks really spooky. Again, this is not professional financial advice, but like it's enough to make me a little nervous. So when I see that, there's a little bit of a crash coming, right? There's a crash or a market correction coming, which tells me it's not going to change the economy. It certainly doesn't show me anything that's going to change the economy more than the internet did. And if the internet didn't create enough productivity to get us UBI, I don't know that AI is as well.
So I don't hope this isn't putting you on the spot, but what do you think about the data center that's being built in Finally Cumberland?
Yeah, that makes me real sad. Right, that makes me real sad. I spent a lot of my early part of my career doing economic development in Kentucky, specifically Appalachia. And some of you will remember that like 30 years ago, prisons were being sold as a form of like economic development in parts of Kentucky. And they really didn't do much.
We did put a lot of people in prison.
We did put a lot of people in prison because if you're going to build stuff, you have to fill it up, right? It's just like how if you build all this AI, then all of a sudden to get people to use it, it has to show up in your Microsoft Office or in your Google, and you're like, how do I get like the AI out of? I'm just trying to get some work done, man, right? So same thing there. I think it's unfortunate. You know, Kentucky has so much to offer economically, and I'm a real believer in sort of the entrepreneurial power of Kentuckians, right? And it strikes me as a shame that we give away like tax money and risk like environmental impacts where we could be taking that tax dollar and supporting like local homegrown entrepreneurs, right? Not just building like spec buildings for manufacturing, but genuinely investing in infrastructure. Like Kentucky, rural Kentucky still pays way too much a kilowatt hour in electricity to have a robust manufacturing base in the state. Our electricity is expensive, right? If we can fix that, right, and we get away from just the idea that if we build it, they will come, the whole spec building strategy, we can do great things, right? We don't need to pay somebody to build a data center that's just going to suck taxes out and use up our water and drive up our energy bills. I feel sorry for the folks around Lake Cumberland for the energy bills that they're going to be paying in a couple of years if that goes through.
Thank you.
Using your tree example, harvesting trees, send it to China, bring the furniture back here. I've bought a couch from China and I bought a couch from North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I know the quality difference, but I also know the price difference.
Yeah.
When we talk about the future of work, I don't view it just through the lens of the work I'm doing. I'm thinking of the income that I'm earning and the income that I need to sustain the life that I need to have. How do you see this impacting people who are, struggling financially? I see the income disparity, that income gap just widening as we bring manufacturing here. What we are bringing is extraordinarily higher costs also.
Yeah.
And I don't know that cost difference, or I'm curious your perspective on if you see that as being a wage increase as well to keep up with the cost increase that we will see.
Yeah, that's such a great question. There's like a lot of pieces to that, right? So one, like globalization is now kind of inevitably coming to an end, right? Just the shipping cost, and here's the thing that nobody thinks about. There are like two navies in the world that like largely, because like our ships that stuff comes in on, have you ever been to like the shipyards in like Seattle or Long Beach and seen these things with like these big containers just like stacked up everywhere? Those are big, slow, vulnerable ships. And they exist because the US Navy, after World War II, prevented piracy on the high seas. And today, like the Japanese Navy is actually one that does it, right, in the South Pacific. And the U.S. Navy, we just don't build ships really well anymore. So like what I say is like, are my theories about globalization coming to an end? I look at the U.S. Navy budget and I look at what ships they're building. And there's nothing in our current like construction of a fleet that tells me that ships are going to be safe from extensive piracy if they are slow ships, right? Around mid-century. So like we're winding down. So the things economically that made it possible, like we were at the end of the Cold War, we wanted China to be our buddy, so we just started like shipping, like, you know, my wife's grandmother like worked at the Fruit of the Loom factory in Frankfort, Kentucky, right? And like she manufactured textiles there when we used to do that here, and all that sort of left for Mexico first and then went to China, and now it's like in Vietnam and Pakistan. And we do that because oil and shipping, subsidized by the US military budget, makes that look like really cheap. When those things go away, at a certain point, the economics don't work. Like, as my dad would say, math unmath, right? Like, the math unmath. And so we have to, like, start manufacturing things here. That's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece is affordability. I saw a really interesting article that had people in my, like, chat groups, like, blowing up and going crazy, where there was a person who suggested last week that $140,000, right, is actually the poverty line in the United States. Right? Right? And that's like, what? 140,000? My son is like, gimme, right? Like, I'll take that. And here's the deal, right? Like, minimum wage has just not kept up with inflation, right? Our investment in public goods, like public transportation, the things that make cheap housing available, like all that has started to go. So like we have done some weird things macroeconomically that has like reduced the total wealth of the average American worker by a substantial amount, right? I'm not here to talk about politics, right? I'm not here to talk about that. But the truth is like what we have decided from a policy perspective to do to grow economically, to grow globalization, has resulted in sort of this, like we've got wealth inequality like we haven't seen since the Teddy Roosevelt era, right? And if we're gonna like bring manufacturing back, we have to do kind of a great reset in terms of like where our wages are, where we're at with like funding healthcare, where we're at with funding schools, where we're at with funding childcare. All of those things, incidentally, are things that we know that like drive up fertility rates. Right? Like paying a woman, like, here's a $5,000 baby bonus check. No, right? They've tried it in South Korea. They've tried it in Sweden. They've tried it all over the place. The things that tend to have an impact are universal childcare, universal health care, universal education. Like all these things tend to be the things that cause people affordable houses, right? Tend to be the things that make people want to have more kids. So if you want to like deal with that demographic issue we talked about, right? Not only salaries going up, but also all of the kind of social safety net that we've crumbled. We got to think about how to do that as well, right? I don't have a big beard, I'm not Karl Marx, like, you know, that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about like if you want capitalism, right? If you want capitalism, there are some things that you got to do. Because there are trends that are like, there's no other way around it, right? There's no way out through. Other question? Yeah.
Yeah, one challenge I kind of see, with addressing all these big problems we're talking about, right? You start talking about some of the solutions, is, also our information environment right now, particularly with AI. Like, if you've ever been on TikTok, so much of it's AI, and also so much it's fake.
Oh, yeah.
Fake entertainment, but also fake news. Like, literally just imaginary. No connection to reality, right? And I especially see this, I'm 27, for people my age and more certainly 7 years younger than me, like 20-year-olds, their information environment, we're not thinking about, issues in the real world, because they're in a digital world that, the algorithms that, OpenAI or whoever's developing, it's profitable for those companies. As you mentioned, might be a bubble, that might be a good thing.
Yeah.
But
So
kind of how do we address these big problems with especially younger people in information environments? That's not.
I'm going to say it isn't like just young people. In fact, like young people tend to be like pulling themselves off the internet and off social media at a huge rate. It's people who are in their mid-50s and above that are hanging out on Facebook, like consuming large amounts of AI slop that live in like some kind of like woo kind of world where like weird stuff is going on here. Like if you want to have some fun, like Google Shrimp Jesus. Right? It's okay. It's not going to take you to anything like nasty or anything like that. But like Google Shrimp Jesus and you'll see like what we're talking about here. That doesn't go away if the bubble pops. I'm sorry to say. Because what did we talk about earlier? Producing visuals, producing video, producing text. All of that is like, it is a faucet of crap, right? And it just comes out really quickly. Did anybody see on X or like Twitter or like whatever we call it now, where there was like a little thing they did that turned on to show you where all the accounts were located in the world? It turns out a lot of these accounts are like in Vietnam or Russia or these places like that. And the question is like, why? Right? Is it all some like, Russian conspiracy? No. It's actually because of ads, right? Like people in other countries can use AI to really cheaply make English language content that they know from the data is going to get you fired up, whether it's real or not. And they just like push out that content at a huge rate every day. And they get tons of money from advertisement money from it, right? So like, is that going to stop? No, because with like little cheap models that will work on your basic like M1 or M2 Mac, you can generate all kinds of like cheap video and images and text. And so that flood of misinformation, like you've probably seen, like there was like one of our major cable news things that like got like some like fake video from Chicago, right? And like put it on as like fact. And then like somebody was like, I did that, right? So like more and more of that stuff, like holy cow, how many of you like turned on Facebook Reels and saw like it was the scientist, in the wheelchair, right? Stephen Hawking was like doing like crazy stuff in the skate park thing, or he was getting like beat down by like whatever in the mixed martial arts ring. Like there's all this stuff. Like Instagram is like I'm removing it from my phone because there's like almost all of it is just AI slop. It's AI slop is the kind of the term for it, and it's cheap and it makes money. So that isn't going away. So we're all going to have to figure out like what we're going to. Turns out that like things like Link and community newspapers are really. Turns out gatekeepers are good, right? Gatekeepers are good. People who pay reporters and do the work. Buying a newspaper is a good thing. Supporting your community journalism is a good thing because these folks do the job of like weeding out the slop so that you aren't like driving yourself crazy to do it too. So if there's one thing I would say, pick some media, whatever you like, right, left, in the middle, like communist, like, whatever you like. I'm sure there's a communist paper out there. There's got to be, there's got to be. But pay them money. Pay journalists money, right? And don't get all your news off of like where the slop is just like coming through.
Oh,
Do you have another question?
well, I was just gonna say, I was in marketing for 30 years.
Oh.
And
You're out now though, right?
I am out now.
Oh, good.
I'm a lot more relaxed.
Good.
No, but I think pay per click is destroying
Yeah.
our world in a way. And it is the model that was developed, but it is not. I would feel a lot better about AI if pay per click was not part of our economic world.
Yeah.
I think it drives all the wrong behaviors, like to a scary level.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. And now it isn't even that you can put ads up on your website. Like remember the glory days of blogs when everybody had a blog and you could run a little advertisement and it funded your little blog project. Now, like have you seen the website click crash because of Google and other folks putting up like AI search overview, which you should just turn off or ignore completely because most of the time it's like fantastic drastically wrong in some way. Like look up the stories about people say, like using is this mushroom safe? Sure. 2 hours later at the hospital, right? But now, like Google isn't even referring people to websites, right? Like it's not referring anybody to websites. That traffic fell off. So Google is selling ads against content that it's like scraping for free from your website. So like the pay-per-click thing, like on steroids, and now only a couple of people that have AI search are doing it. So now the hottest thing in copywriting and marketing is writing a website copy for AI that humans will never see, so that it shows up in the search results of your AI overview on Google or Perplexity or whatever, right? And like almost nobody makes money off of that except like Google and Perplexity, right? So your local business website, nobody's going to your local business website.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, you've got your traffic, right? You've got your traffic.
Call that again, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
Click Clash or?
You said to turn it off. Was it the AI search?
Oh, the AI overview, where like you search for something and it gives you like a little thing, AI overview, sometimes like dramatically wrong. Like we all know the jokes about OpenAI, tell me how many R's are in strawberry, and it can't do it, right? It can't do it. They have to go in and hard code it, right? And that's the other thing about AI. AI is not a neutral thing, right? There are these little things that are buried in AI called system prompts, and they are prompts that people running the AI write to create a set of instructions to say, do this or do that. So some of you had the joy of experiencing Elon Musk's Kim Il-sung moment or Kim Jong-un moment where like it was like, yes, Elon Musk is the greatest person at this. Elon Musk is greater than Jesus because his relentless drive for entrepreneurship. And I'm like, wow, right? And that doesn't happen just because the thing it can't think, right? And if statistically, if it's just pulling text, it's not gonna like come up with that on its own. No, for some poor engineer, Elon Musk said, go in there and tell it to do this. And they had to write this prompt and that's why like all of a sudden like Grok started calling itself Mecha Hitler for a few days and saying like kill all the Jews and stuff, because somebody gets in and messes with it in a system prompt and it's bending like the results that come to you. So talk about, can we take it for truth or not? Even something as like basic as a search engine, which like if some of you remember like the dark ages of the internet before we had a search engine, like Google was a genuine miracle, right? Like it was a genuine miracle. And then all of a sudden they decided to degrade the search engine. If you looked at those legal filings in the DOJ settlement, they deliberately chose to make their search worse so that you would spend more time looking for stuff that you can't find. And that got people conditioned to such bad search that the AI overview is now where most people are getting their stuff. So the problem is getting worse, and the problem will continue to get worse. Sorry.
No worries, the learning prompt that people instead of basketball.
That's right.
James.
That's right. Elon Musk should be starting point guard of the Kentucky Wildcats this season. Yeah.
So I'm not asking you to pontificate about politics, but do you think in the future there's potential for legislators to regulate, we'll call it AI slop or AI generated content, or do you think the levee is kind of broken on that?
I don't know that politicians of either party have much incentive to do it, right? They're getting a lot of money from folks who...
Maybe that's wishful thinking. I just wanted to know if that would be an issue that could arise in the future.
Yeah, I just don't know as a country right now if like... So for instance, I had a friend of mine who is in his early 70s that said, hey, my financial advisor just like called us and said he wanted to move part of our retirement portfolio into Bitcoin. Again, I'm not a legal financial advisor. Do not take this as legal financial advice, but that strikes me as like profoundly silly to do, right? Like crypto is like generally is a huge scam. Are there good things you can do with blockchain technologies? Yes, of course, right? You can actually do some useful stuff with it. Crypto is like speculative. And as a country right now, we are big on speculation, like FanDuel or like all these like sports gambling sites. Like, holy cow, are we a country of like gamblers right now? And so I don't see much regulation coming because there's kind of this like laissez-faire attitude about all of these things. And it's like, I mean, one of the biggest proponents of some of the crypto legislation that came through was Kirsty Gillibrand of New York, a Democrat who ran for president in 2020, if some of you remember. She is like one of the biggest advocates in the US Congress for pro-cryptocurrency legislation, right? So I don't see a huge, if you can't regulate something as like obviously a problem as like cryptocurrency, NFTs, like I remember like Bored Ape Yacht Club, like soap juices. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense now either. But like I just don't see an appetite for it anytime soon, right? Because there's just so much money to be made from it, and the people who have the money are getting the ear of people in both parties, right? So there's just not much. And we're just bad at regulating the internet, right? Like a lot of our current problems, if you want to have some fun, go down a rabbit hole, go to Wikipedia, which is still like a reliable source of information, believe it or not. Well, Wikipedia will go and look at the 1996 Telecommunications Act, signed into law by President William Jefferson Clinton, right? And all of our current woes on the internet stem right from that piece of legislation. I won't tell you why. You go look and have fun with it, right? But legislation has huge impacts, and we've never like rolled any of that back. So I don't know that we're going to fix any of it in the near future. Sorry.
We got time for one more question.
I actually wanted to, if you wouldn't mind answering this question that somebody posted, it wasn't me, but
Oh.
is AI going to solve our public transportation problems as the tank buses go by? Is it going to solve public transportation?
Is it going to solve public transportation? Yes and no, right? Not in the short term. Anybody who lived in Louisville, like my grandkids, like had a heck of a time getting to school at the beginning of the school year last year because somebody like bought a service from an AI company that was going to tell all the school buses where to go instead of like relying on the expertise of drivers. And it was a huge disaster. They had to cancel the first 4 or 5 days of school because it was such a mess. And UPS had to bring in their logistics capability to fix the Louisville public school busing system. Yeah, it was a huge disaster. Thanks, whatever AI company sold you like this solution. Now, the question is a little more complicated, right, for public transportation. Public transportation in some ways is not necessarily just a logistics question. It's a design question. It's an equity question. It's an urban design question, right? Like I would much rather see like denser urban design and more autonomous buses running around the city than I would see everybody buy an electric car, right? So AI can help like make autonomous, like if anybody's ridden in one of those Waymo taxis, like they work in very limited areas, right? But over time, it's likely that that form of AI can yield efficient routes. There are not what we think of as like generative AI, like Gemini or ChatGPT isn't going to do it, right? But good machine learning can tell us a lot. Like ask the folks who know how to do logistics. Ask UPS, ask Amazon, right? They know how to do logistics, and they're not using Grok or OpenAI to do it. They're using like hardcore machine learning to figure out that. But that won't solve the problem of good public policy and citizen involvement in good urban planning and design. Job location to where people can like walk. Like walkable cities are a big thing, right? And so AI isn't going to solve that problem, right? AI is not a silver bullet to fix problems that are at its fundament human problems. Only we can fix that.
Right. So no impact on the rural areas either.
know, like, oh gosh, if you took one of those Waymos out of San Francisco, right, or Phoenix, and you plunked them down in Whitesburg, Kentucky, it would run off into a holler in like 15 minutes, right? Like
They just need to move north.
like if everybody would just move out of rural places into like,
Okay,
yeah, and that's the thing. Like in some areas they work really well, and some they don't, and some they probably never will. Autonomy is really hard. Autonomy is really hard, and there are forms of AI that help drive that, right? But in urban areas, it can be of some use, just not like ChatGPT style.
Thank you.
Did you have one more question? Do you have
Can I
time for one
squeeze
more?
in one quick?
Any quick?
I'm sorry.
Yo, yeah, go for it.
My superintendent was here and had to leave, and he'd be mad at me if I didn't ask this for him. Educators and this side of the room, like curriculum for students, like knowing what's changing in the workforce, how could we prepare, like make sure our kids are learning what they need to?
The best thing you can do is not let them use AI tools until maybe they're in like high school, right? We have lots of good research that suggests that the use of generative AI tools has a significant negative cognitive impact. It makes us dumber, and it makes us dumber the more we use it, and it makes us more sure of it. It's just like, when calculators came out, like we didn't ban calculators, but we also said you have to get through a certain level of math education before we're going to let you just bring out that thing. Same thing with AI. So my advice would be, right, don't do it. If you go to like, the rich Silicon Valley tech bro guys, they're not letting their kids use this stuff. They don't even let them have an iPad or anything like that, right? And there were people, like I remember when I was a university educator, 15, 20 years ago, it was all, we don't need to teach kids facts anymore. We got Google. Google can just tell you anything you know, so we'll just think critically. And look at us now, right? So I asked those folks that I knew in the education sector, well, how did that work out for you? Do we want to keep doing this? So my suggestion would be that school districts that focus on writing, reading skills, critical thinking, you're not having to, kids aren't going to go to job George Jetson style and use a ChatGPT window in 15 years. Right? AI will still be there, but it'll be there like it is on your iPhone. Your iPhone is riddled with little AI systems that are doing amazing things all around the background. And that's kind of how you'll work with AI in the future, unless you're an AI scientist or somebody who's programming, in which case they'll get a degree in that. But for your kids in K-12, the best thing we could do right now would be to keep them away from it. Just keep them away from it as much as we can, right? Because it's dangerous stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to make somebody mad with that, but
That's okay. Thought-provoking is what
Yeah.
we're after. So, Christopher, thank you so much. This has
pleasure.
been
Thank
really
you.
wonderful. I did want to say a little something about Link and our use of AI. I think that this is an appropriate time for us to talk about how we use AI at Link, because we are one of those gatekeepers of information. We are one of those local news organizations that, according to Christopher, you should totally support. That's not me saying it, that's Christopher saying it, and he's the expert. The way that we use AI internally, we don't use it to write, right? We don't use generative AI to write. We don't use AI to do our video. Ethan does our video in the back end. He's our videographer, right? Kenton and the other reporters are the ones who are reporting. They're coming to meetings in person, they're talking to folks, and they're writing, because that is the human part of it. We use it to help with SEO optimization. We use it to help give us headline suggestions sometimes, because that can be a real stumper. How do I abbreviate all of this to get it to fit on the page so the headline still makes sense? We use it in those ways. Social media teases, right? What is the algorithm at Facebook like this week? We find that AI is much better at updating itself and understanding what it is that the algorithms are looking for. And also that is work that our digital editor does not need to be doing, right? Memorizing what the algorithms love. Those are the ways that we're experimenting with AI inside Link. And we also always flag it. Our AI policy is on our site. And we flag it if we ever use AI for anything. We don't use it to create images either. We use photographers. When we have photographers to use, we use graphic design when we can afford it. It is expensive, but we believe in supporting those folks. Our paper is designed by a human. She also designs the graphics that go on the front cover if there's ever illustrations instead of. photographs. So that's how we're using it. We believe that it can be an additive tool in the same way that spell check and grammar check have been for, decades. So thank you again, Christopher, for coming. We do encourage you to attend these events. The video for this will be up tomorrow. You can share it with folks who weren't able to be here. I think this is the sort of thing that lots of people would love to interact with and know and hear about. And we just really appreciate everybody coming out on this cold December evening to spend some time with us. And we'll be around if anybody wants to talk to us. So thank you so much, and thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.